Each individual experience what it is like to be a part of a culture and learn cultural norms. However, as humans, we fail to discuss how our cultural expectations can and does have an effect on our mental health.
Today we will take a look at the Asian culture, the stigmas of mental health, their traditions, and suicidal ideations among the culture. We will also talk about the struggles many youth face while trying to uphold cultural traditions, as well as meeting the expectations of living in Western society.
So ladies, as you know, we're taking a look at the Asian culture, which is quite interesting. But before we start, why don't we just address some of the norms and stigma within our own culture?
Okay.
Okay. Which one would you like to start first?
I would say that within the African American culture, well, let me take it back because I have two different cultures. There is African American, and then I happen to be Haitian, so there's the Haitian culture. And they're pretty much synonymous anyways, where you pray everything away. Mental health isn't something that's widely communicated, where if something's going on with you, you call a counselor. What they typically do is they call a community member. Because, wow, I just had a memory of, like, there were some issues within the home, and I guess mom and dad really couldn't get a handle on it. So what they did is they called a community member in to act as a counselor. But I think that that can cause some harm because you don't have the skill set, one, and then you have an opportunity where there can be whispers within the community, which just causes havoc. So, yeah, it's funny. That was a memory that just came up.
Shauna?
You know, whenever we talk about this, my brain goes into like a blender goes into it, because culturally I have to revisit this of what do I identify as, who do I identify with, and that is a challenge for me.
Right.
I mean, I'm a Southern, I was raised in Texas, I'm middle-aged, Caucasian, but I didn't have like an extended family. We've talked about this a lot. I don't have a religious aspect or a spiritual culture. Really it was my tiny family of, you keep it in the house, you don't share your business with other people. With that being said, I was able to get help, outside of the home, but it got really bad. Like I was not able to get out of bed, and I was struggling with severe depression when I was a teenager, and had to go be the one to ask for help.
Right.
But culturally, it was, again, you keep everything looking pretty and nice, and you don't let anybody know that there are problems.
Right.
So I guess that's, again, it's like, what is my culture? What did we stand for and adhere to? It's a struggle.
Yeah. And for me, not just as an African American woman, but for one who has a strong Christian background, I'm like, my uncle was a bishop. I have all these pastors on both sides, mom's side, dad's side. And so church was very important. And meeting all of these expectations of what it means to be a Christian. And that was the biggest struggle that, I had to deal with, because I had all these ideas, other people ideas, man-made ideas about what Christianity was. And so as I grew up and established my own relationship with God and was able to make sense of the Bible, I learned that a lot of this stuff that was going on was, created by man. All of these rules and these guidelines, because I always thought, and the Bible says, come as you are. But then when you walk into a church as a young lady and you know, and all you have is a little dress that may be a little bit above the knee, and the sisters are running to you, throwing these little scarves on you, and actually telling you, no, 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 you don't come in here like this. And you're like, wait a minute, like what? I thought I was wearing my clothes. And so it was, you know, and all of that had an effect on me. And for a while, I struggled with the whole Christianity, but then I had to grow up and mature and know God for myself and be able to make sense of the Bible and have this relationship to be aware that, you know, these were man-made rules. And a lot of it was taken out of context, and people were just doing their own thing, unfortunately. And unfortunately, it was out of ignorance, and they didn't realize the stress that they were putting on me as a young person and many of the other youth that go into the church, and especially as a female. And so I think that was the biggest struggle for me, because I do come from this strong Christian family who had all, you know, all of these ideas of what Christianity was supposed to be. So that's me.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the Asian culture. This is a very private culture. And so it's interesting that we would look at them. And I think sometimes a lot of people in the Western society misunderstand them. They're private culture, and they, unlike us as Americans, we push autonomy, individualism.
Yeah, that's the big thing that popped up when I knew we were gonna talk about this, and I'm really glad we are, because it's a completely different thing. They are all about not what's going to benefit me, what is going to benefit us as the family and as our culture, and not shaming or disrespecting or doing anything to even promote that you're doing it just for yourself.
Right, exactly.
That's my understanding.
But see, then I would say that I understand that, because I was toting the line of two different cultures. Where as I'm growing up, it's like, you know, autonomy, and I'm like, oh, I like that. But then you have the Haitian culture where it's like, whatever you do reflects us, so you better watch it.
Right.
So I don't come from that culture, and I can't say that I do understand it to that effect, but I can definitely relate.
Right.
And I guess in that respect, I relate to the independence and the autonomy culture. I guess I just had a moment of, okay, that, because I was raised 100% American, 100%, you know, do for you.
Right. And I think all of us can say that we can experience a little bit of that, because as an African American, and can I just say, as a person of African descent, when we look at our tradition says that we're a community, and we have this whole thing that it takes more than
it takes a village
to raise. And so not only as one of African descent who believes in community and family, but especially with this Christian background, it was what you do affects all of us. Especially when you have pastors in your family, and I had this uncle as a pastor, you know, you have to kind of walk a certain way and do certain things. And then on my mom's side, she also had pastors, and we were raised to be tight, like really close knit with the pastors that we were under. So it's almost like if you did something, it affected this whole community, this whole Christian community. And so you had to be careful of how you do things.
Well, they call you a PK kid.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't a PK kid.
But you still act like one.
I do. It's honest, because pastors run through my family. It's like my granddaddy was a pastor. His first son was a pastor. And then my uncle has 2 sons who are pastors. And on my mom's side, she has all these nephews as pastors. The pastor that we grew up with in a Baptist church, he was like semi-granddaddy, father, all of this. So yeah, I think all of us can experience somewhat of that, being selfish if you think about just you. And we talked about that on our first show when we interviewed with Karen, you know, because when you try to just focus on you and improve you and take care of you, then you're selfish. And so I think we all can relate to some of what the Asian culture experiences, but their culture has so many dynamics to it. And that's what makes it so interesting. And we're really hoping that we can dig into this and help people understand what it's like in the Asian community and the struggles with being in Western society. Because there's a lot of struggle with being in Western society. And sometimes they do get a bad rap. But, you know, but I got to give it to them. You're like, really? they're strong about upholding their cultural traditions. And
At what cost?
At what cost?
Because we don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
And, making sure that family, community is together. They're really passionate about that.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of mental illness and stress behind doing so. And so that's what we want to talk about today. And I'm excited that we can really dig into this and look into some things and hopefully help some other therapists out there understand, when they do have an Asian client, because, when we're taught and we're in school and we're taught multiculturalism, the first thing they say to us is, if you have an Asian client come in, and confidential is everything. You want to talk to them about if they want their family, in on this, because, if you don't, and they're so community based, because I think, what was it? Somebody got, some college. Do y'all remember this story? Some college was sued because an Asian student was having suicidal ideations, and she eventually killed herself. Yeah, and the therapist never told the parent, and so the parent sued the college.
I didn't know.
I learned that in one of my multiculturalism classes, and that's why they push this whole community when you're dealing with Asian clients. But we have to be careful because, and I just seem to think that no matter what culture you come from, you have to deal with it on the individual basis.
Right.
And it's important to talk to that client first to see how comfortable the client is with bringing family into,
they have to give consent.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they have to give consent.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's hold this thought. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we have our special guest here with us, Mai Nguyen.
Welcome back to Intake. We are delighted to have a special guest today, Mai Nguyen. Mai is an entrepreneur in the state of Florida. She's mostly known as a film producer within her community. She's also a financial professional, helping families find their financial freedom. She believes in the beauty of unlimited possibilities. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Mai. So, I have so much I want to talk to you about. I don't know where to start. But first, just give people a little background history about yourself.
Thank you. My family have been here basically my whole life. I've been a Southern baby. I love it here in Florida. It's very similar to where we're from. My family mostly Vietnamese, and like the climate, everything is similar. But like our background as like culture-wise, adjusting to American was very rough for a long time. I think roughly probably the last couple of years, been an eye opener to my mom and me. We have finally understand each other. For the longest time, we've been fighting.
Right.
And to herself, she's been fighting too, because she's so used to this culture that's so demanding of her giving up everything she loved for her family, and the fact she's giving up so much emotionally affect her and emotionally affect everybody around her.
Right. Okay. So when we talk about the Asian community, you all firmly believe in staying within the community. There is no autonomy. And when I say autonomy, individualism is not pushed. Can you talk about that? How family is seen?
It's the whole culture itself from like forever. The way we talk, even if, for example, we win our war, we never say I, we never say us, we.
Okay.
Because but to be selfish, you can never be on top if there wasn't other people helping you. That's pretty much how they see it. So like for me to give a speech, thank you, I did this and I did that, then that'd be very disrespectful. Because then who was the one supporting you? Who was there pushing you up? Who was there helping you along the way? So it's always we. And every decision, the culture itself is always about what affect your family as a whole. Because what affect your family as a whole affect your community, how they reflect you, how they see you in community. Because so we have, since we're little, we're very cautious of our action. Every little thing we do reflect on us as the family and as the community, and that's how people see us. Any a rumor can kill somebody, and I mean literally can kill a person.
Yeah.
If I talk to, most culture, we're just told like a little, don't talk to boys, don't mess with boys, stay away from boys. But if I talk to a stranger on the street and someone see it, they spread, oh, she's talking to somebody. You just try and give them it was something innocent. You just give them direction. But the minute that rumor started, depending how the rumor go through the community, can affect your whole livelihood, like your whole life. It could have been like, now you're considered as, oh, you're trying to get with somebody at a young age. You're not a virgin no more. Are you, so it just, rumors just go on. It changed, rumors just go on. And then that can affect you getting married. That affect the way the family look at you. And your family will honor that lie more than your truth. You can tell them the truth. Like, no, Mom, I just telling them where to go. They're acting direction. But they won't believe that. The rumor is more strong than the truth.
Right.
Because the community believe than that. So that if the community believe in that, that's what you are now.
That's a lot of stress.
So that's why you're very you have to be very cautious. You do it all the time, and even the way you talk to your parent, you might be joking with your mom at home, but in the street you can't talk the same way. You have to be. That's why a lot of them are very quiet. If you notice in the Asian, we're very known to be quiet. We don't really say much because the littlest thing can just snap. Your parent can snap the community, and you just like, I'd rather just not say nothing.
So is it, may I ask, because it sounded like you can maybe be a little looser with the way that you communicate in your home, but once you step out,
it's a little looser, but not really
tiny bit? No?
Not really,
Gotcha.
not to the point where you're comfortable even be personal with your parent. Because it's not very common to hear or see anyone actually in love when you're little. So your parents showing you love is kind of weird for us. In American culture, you tell your kid, I love you and stuff. I don't think I ever heard my parent tell me they love me when I was little. I think about it. I maybe one time, but it was more of just something odd, but maybe at least once. But truly, it's like, hey, I love you, sweetie. We don't get that on a daily basis. We are more like, okay, this is what you do. You're at school. You expect it to make a grade. You're expected to go to the next grade. You're expected to go to college. You're expected to marry well, because that is the pattern.
Right.
Like, just in a nutshell, it's like basically ever since you're little, you listen to your grandparent, your mom and dad, and you listen to what they say. And basically you're told what they say is important, and this is the rule of life, basically. This is what is going down.
So in essentially, you can't have your own individual thought.
If you do, that's considered selfish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let's say I want to go to college, but my parent want me to be a doctor. Typical stereotyping. But I want to be a YouTuber. Nowadays, modern time, we can be a YouTuber as a living. And then they'll be like, they will look at you crazy. Like, what? What is that? That's not career. What is that? Like, that's not going to make you money. But they don't, even if you make billion, they're going to be like, that's not a real job.
Right.
Wow.
Your dream is non-existent. But like, there's no such thing as dreaming. Like, if you ask the average Asian person, I'll say, what is your dream? They can't tell you, because they never told or asked, what is your dream? They all have been told what to do.
Right.
They've been told what career they're going to do, what kind of marriage they're going to be in. And a lot of time in the more of like, back home, like a lot of them, marriage is a business. It's not, oh, you're marrying somebody you're in love with. Your parent might consider the person that you chose, but at the end of the day, it's a business. It's not considered as marrying somebody you love. Love is fairy tale. There's no fairy tale. It's just fairy tale. It's just soap opera. It's just book TV. It's not real. Love is not real. So since you're little, you kind of got put that in the mindset already. So you expect to marry that person, do what you're supposed to do as a wife. So you move from your parent house. As a girl, you don't really live on your own. You go from your parent house to your husband house, and now you follow your husband house rule. And usually the mother and father live there, and you follow their rule, and you go by what they say and all stuff. And a lot of time you get treated basically like a slave, or because you're now, you're cleaning, cooking, giving birth to this kid, but you're alone in this. Even if your husband decides to, like, well, I don't want to she's raising the kid. Well, I want to know a woman. Mm-hmm. It's normal. We're used to it. Mm-hmm. We're used to having a husband. Okay, you know, I might get a wife or no girlfriend, or I would just go down the street, one of those little considered a whorehouse, basically. And it's very common in our culture. It's in every block, like gas station. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like sex. People go there for like sense of just
intimacy.
Sense of intimacy. It's something somebody to talk to, because you marry a wife, but it's not who you chose. Your parent chose that person.
Right.
Yeah. So you're not in love with them. You're just doing what you're being told. Even the guys, they're being told what to do, just as much as the girl are, and they have no opinion on it.
Right.
It's just, this is your wife. She's gonna give birth to a kid. You gotta look great together and all this stuff. But then you had no opinion in it either. So the guys have more leeway where they can go off and go do things. But at the end of the day, it's destroying their marriage, because now, like, there's this thing we call sexless marriage, where you marry, have kids, and after the part of having the kids that they're supposed to have, a girl and a boy,
That's it.
pretty much they're done. Like, they never have sex. There are people that live 10, 20 years, live in the same house, maybe in the same bed, or she'll sleep with the kids and he sleep alone. Never have sex after that.
That's interesting. I'm sorry. That's interesting. Because you and I, we have quite a few conversations. And you kind of schooled me into this documentary, Sex and Love Around the World. And I watched it, and it was amazing to me, because it was pretty much what you're saying now, and how a lot of the Asian women were talking about, you know, it's almost like they were disgusted after having these babies, like, nah, I wouldn't have sex with my husband.
Right.
And and they never say, I love you, or husband has never said, I love you. For them, they show their affection by, you know, doing what they do in the household. And
they're just doing their job. That's basically what it is. Their job, like the culture, like, tell them this is their job. Their life, like, as a woman, like, you know, this is your job. Your job is to take care of the husband, take care of the kid, and you have a good life and all that stuff. Your husband, you know, taking care of you, and basically, essentially, a lot of them are housewives. Well, it was still considered as housewife, but nowadays we have women now starting to merge into like work life. Like, they're starting to work. They are more independent now. So that affects the whole livelihood of the culture now. It's like really affecting it, because now women have opinion, they have power, they have money, and now it's like they're educated now. So a lot of them will say, "Oh, everyone's becoming westernized." It's not becoming westernized. I think it's more like society's changing, and the rule of life and culture is not updating as fast as us. But it's so strong and deep that it's really hard to break apart, because this is a culture that, you know, this thousands of years. This is how it's been forever.
Right.
For break something like this, it's like it's going to take a while, and it's going to take a lot of strong people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I focus saying a lot of stuff on the women, but the men have just as bad of like a responsibility, because they are just expected to go get a good education. They have to get a good job. Their job is to take care of their wife. You know, if they don't make enough money, a lot of them get stressed over work, because they're not making enough money. A lot of them spend more time at work, and not intentionally, they're not really home no more. So the culture itself just breaking them apart. So instead of like focus on like their love for each other, or focus on their family, they're focused on just providing, and focus on providing, and afraid to lose everything, because they're told their whole life, you gotta work hard, if not you're gonna lose everything. And it's so brainwashed into our system that we're scared. Like, Larry, there was a story of this guy, like, he got pulled over in Asia. I'm not exactly where. He got pulled over to the cop because he was running home to give his wife the key. He somehow had the key to the house. She didn't have the key no more. But he was stuck at work. He had to run home, go back to work, and within less than like 15 minutes, even though his house is like 30 minutes away.
Wow.
He got pulled over. Now it's delaying him going back to work. He was so stressed, afraid he was going to lose his job, that he literally almost committed suicide on the bridge. He's like, I'd rather die now than go home, face my wife, face my job that I could lose, just to the fact I have to leave for like 30 minutes and come back. But he'd been there like all day. He lived at his job.
So with everything that you're saying, and then you're talking about, you had shared with us coming over here, how stressful is it for you specifically being in the middle, like having westernized culture, but then also having your culture that you grew up with, and where do you
The
fit
fight in the
Yeah.
middle. Yeah.
And since you live a double life, that's really is like that's the best way I can describe it. You at home, you have a set of rule. At school, you have a set of rule. So you transition into that person as you change your environment.
Yeah.
So a lot of things that I do at home, I can't do at school. And when I'm at school, there's a lot of things I can't do at home.
Right.
And as I was little, I always thought American was weird.
I can imagine.
We don't do this. We don't do that. I have a male teacher, usually, stuff like that. Like, I have a male classmate, and then, like, stay away from me, and stuff like that. But then as I'm growing up, I'm starting to understand, like, this is just the American and Western culture, and this is my culture. And then I question mine at home. And every time I question it, it's always like, well, that's just how it is, and that's the rule. You have to listen to me, I'm your mom, or listen to me because I'm your grandma or your aunt. And if I question anymore, I get slapped. At school, we were driving, like, independent, and, like, you're allowed to have your own voice. And I was, like, getting shut down when I'm home. Like, I was not allowed, I'm not allowed to think, I had to be quiet. And I'm like, I asked, and the thing is, most times I'm around my mother or my aunt, my grandma, they don't know the answer. Like, why do us women do this and then the men get away with this? Like, why is it not fair?
Right.
They don't have the answer to it. It's not that they don't it's not they don't know, like, they don't know any better. And they were taught this way, and they were taught, like, if you ever question it, you gotta beat your child until they make sense to them.
Yeah.
And it's not until they make sense, it's just more I give up. It's more like, okay, I guess this is how it is. I just have to accept it. This is life. And this is how it's going to be rest of my life. So deal with it now, or if not, you deal with it later. Either way, you're going to deal with it. But then we don't really vent to anybody. Like, we keep everything to ourselves. Because for us to think out of the box and being selfish, it makes us look like we're being, like, we're trying to be, like, it's almost considered evil, being selfish. It's like, oh, I'm trying to say, oh, well, I feel, the minute you say you feel, it's considered selfish, because you have to think how your family will feel about it.
Right.
And that's what that's what all of us are trying to teach people to do, is to talk about how you're feeling about things, which I can't imagine how just stressed and stuck in the middle and not even knowing which way to go that has to be with hearing.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Would you say that it even perpetuates a situation where you don't even know your own identity because you're not given an opportunity to develop
like,
it?
Since our culture is the way it is, it's almost everybody's just cookie cutter. Like, it's just a copy of the culture. And we know, like, this is the rule, this is how, we don't talk about it because it's like, we just know this is how it is. This is it. And to question it is selfish. So why would we be selfish?
Yeah, since we're talking about colorism, because you and I had this conversation earlier, and that is, I have always been told, and I expect it, especially from the Vietnam culture, that you all don't really care for African Americans. And I've always wondered why that is. Like, even now, when I walk into an Asian store, I could care less about how well I look. I mean, they start to follow us. And can I be real? Most of the hair stores are owned by Asians. Yeah. And so they start to follow us around as if we're some threat to them. And I was just wondering, like, why is that?
Well, I guess during the time when people come over here, I want to say because the way, the image that we're given when we first come here.
Yeah. If you're looking for more information about a topic that was discussed on one of our shows, please visit intake.tv and check out our resource page.
If you're a professional who would like to be on the show, or an individual who has struggled with mental health and would like to be a guest, email us at info@intake.tv. Follow us on all of our social media platforms.
Okay. Intake is the place to be.
It's because